Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister updated the House on the conflict in the Middle East and Gulf. And overnight we have continued to see Iranian strikes on Gulf nations. Mr. Speaker, the safety and security of British nationals is our top priority, and I want to update the House on support for British citizens who are in the region. As of this morning, 130,000 British nationals have now signed up to the Register Your Presence programme, which is vital to the Foreign Office's ability to know where people are and to provide updates and advice. Members will know that in many of these countries the airspace is still closed, but I'm in close contact with my counterparts across the region, speaking again yesterday with the UAE on the excellent support that they are providing and some of the departures that they are now securing as this becomes viable. And we are also working with airlines on increasing capacity out of Muscat for British nationals, with priority for vulnerable nationals. And a government charter flight will fly from Muscat in the coming days, prioritising vulnerable nationals. But British nationals in Oman must wait to be contacted by the Foreign Office regarding these options, and we will continue to work 24/7 on supporting British nationals in the region. I would tell the House this is a very fast-moving situation. We have unprecedented numbers of British nationals in the region, and I will continue to update members and affected British nationals as the situation evolves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're all deeply concerned about the escalating situation in the Gulf. Following the PM's statement yesterday, has the Secretary of State had any discussions with her counterparts in the US, Europe or Israel about measures to secure any nuclear or radiological material in Iran in light of the possibility of its trafficking due to current events?
Foreign Secretary.
It's right to raise this issue. It is extremely important that Iran is not able to develop a nuclear weapon. There are also obviously concerns about the security of materials as well. It is an issue, obviously, we continue to work closely with our operational partners.
Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel.
Mr. Speaker, the government's indecision on how to deal with Iran has left the UK weaker and undermined our own security. But as the House has already started to discuss, prescribing the IRGC will strengthen our position. So I actually prescribed Hamas when I was Home Secretary, so I've dealt with state prescriptions. The Foreign Secretary, in her role as Home Secretary last year, spoke about bringing forward the Hall Review and the recommendations and to bring forward a series of powers. When will she and her government, and I'm going to make a suggestion here for her, bring forward the parliamentary time that is essential so we can have emergency legislation to prescribe the IRGC? And if she desperately needs parliamentary time that is not timetabled so far, would she scrap the Chagos surrender bill so we can legislate to do this now?
Well, again, I just point out we have had a record number of former Conservative and still Conservative Home Office ministers coming forward to call for things that they failed to do while they were in government. I would say to her, this government is determined to bring forward the legislation to take forward the Jonathan Hall Review, but it is legislation that the Conservative government could have done over very many years in order to strengthen the legislation. And we will also strengthen the action on our streets and internationally on the Iranian threat.
Dame Priti Patel.
Mr. Speaker, events in the Middle East remind us how important our collective defence and security at the base of Diego Garcia is, and the whole of the Chagos archipelago, and nothing should be done to undermine that. Now, given the latest comments from the President of the United States on the importance of the base and the folly, Mr. Speaker, in giving sovereignty away, will the Foreign Secretary finally do what's right for the defence of our country and British taxpayers and British Chagosians and tear up the terrible Labour Chagos surrender treaty?
Just say to the Shadow Foreign Secretary that this government believes that decisions should be made in the UK national interest, according to UK values, not according to any other government's national interest, whether that be across Europe, the US, the Middle East or beyond. And when it comes to the issues around the Chagos, we will take decisions in the interests of our national security. She knows the national security issues that are at stake here, and instead of simply travelling around the world trying to undermine the UK's national security and trying to undermine the decisions that we are taking, perhaps she should actually start standing up for the UK's national interest instead.
Red Beavers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My 8-year-old grandson, Ronnie, along with his mum and dad, spent Sunday night on the bathroom floor in RAF Akatiri until they got the all clear at 3 a.m. in the morning. Will the Foreign Secretary assure me that this country will not be dragged into another illegal war by the Americans, putting the lives of British servicemen and women and millions of innocent civilians in danger?
Well, I want to praise the UK armed forces that we have in Akatiri for their huge professionalism, for the work that they do to defend UK security and our national security as well. We have already increased the deployment with additional defensive capabilities, including radar, F-35 jets and air defence and counter-drone systems, and we work closely with the Cypriot government as well on safety and security issues too.
Callum Miller, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Prime Minister argued that the government was distinguishing between defensive and offensive operations by US bombers making use of UK bases. On issues of such gravity, clarity is essential to avoid mission creep. So can the Foreign Secretary confirm that the UK will agree the target and monitor the outcome of each of these US sorties? Will the government report on this to the Intelligence and Security Committee? And can she confirm that if one were found, if it's anything other than a missile battery or missile store, the UK would suspend its agreement for the use of its bases?
Well, we have long-standing operational arrangements for partners and allies that we work closely with, and we assure those are implemented. But what I'd say to him is the principles that we follow here are about ensuring that there is a lawful basis for action, ensuring that it is also in UK interest. But at a time when we have seen strikes from the Iranian regime on countries that were not involved in this conflict, where we have 300,000 British citizens currently resident, were we not to take action to support and protect those British citizens when they might be threatened with attack? I think we would find that extremely difficult to justify.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was a pleasure to see the Foreign Secretary at last month's Munich Security Conference, where, despite warm words on all sides, the trust gap between the European Union and the United States was absolutely palpable, impacting discussions on defence, procurement, technology sovereignty, Greenland, the Middle East, etc. Could she tell me how she sees the UK's role? Should we be trying to restore trust? We have our own trust gap. Should we pick a side, European Union versus United States, or do we forge an independent path, dependent on neither?
Well, the UK's task must always be to act in the UK's national interest according to UK values. But at the heart of that national interest and those values are things like the NATO alliance, the transatlantic alliance, as well as our partnership with other European countries and other countries on our defence as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply concerned about the British service personnel who are being put at risk by attacks from Iran. With US Secretary of State Marco Rubio now warning that the hardest hits are yet to come, can the Foreign Secretary confirm whether there are any British personnel on any US ships which are being used to attack Iran?
Well, what I can tell her is that we take the safety of UK personnel immensely seriously, and I do want to pay tribute to the service that they show for our country. It is why we have already increased some of the deployments in order to ensure that, for example, in Cyprus there is added radar and air protection as well, and we will always continue to do so, and we ensure that operational matters happen in their normal way.
Andrew Lewin.
Mr. Speaker, at the Munich Security Conference, the Prime Minister rightly said that we must do more to work with our allies to build our collective European security. Given that moral imperative, can I ask my right honourable friend if there is an ambition for the UK and the EU to reopen negotiations on UK access to the EU's safe defence mechanism?
Honourable friend asks a very important question. We are absolutely committed to strengthening our defence cooperation with the EU and European partners, and of course with NATO as the bedrock. We negotiated in good faith on SAFE, but the terms weren't in the UK's national interest, but we're going to continue to engage constructively across a range of areas of cooperation.
Bob Blackman.